it plays a role in the big picture. I mean, I think the pro-growth policies we're seeing out of this administration, deregulation, the bringing manufacturing back home, getting these deals where you're actually going to get foreign investment in this country that's controlled by us, that we can kind of decide where to put that investment. The immigration policy where you're controlling the border again, and tax policy, the big beautiful bill. All those things I think are going to feed into a long-term story, meaning post-bust, because I'm still calling for a global bust next year. But post-bust, I think those things are constructive to the economy, will be part of the story afterwards. In the short run, they create volatility. People react to various things in geopolitically as well as economically, and it can create some volatility there. But basically, I think the story, as I say, the bust, in my opinion, is baked in the cake. It's not the result of Trump's policies. It's the result of decades, and I mean many decades, of misappropriation of capital, cycles that got overheated and then got tightened down too far. And so what you've had is this ratcheting up, kind of a natural thing in the big cycle, in the what I call a super cycle, where each cycle gets a little bit more extended and therefore takes more policy to crank it down. The excesses get greater. It takes more policy to crank those down. Then you go and overdo it on trying to get you out of that hole, and it becomes another one. And what you get is, I think somebody called it a buggy whip type of action, or a sine wave, I'm not sure, but where you get these steeper cycles. And so 2008-9 was our biggest pull. I raised it again to 8,700. So I'm clearly by far the most bullish on the street. I think we're in a final leg of a 43-year secular bull market. We've talked about that before. And there'll be pullbacks along the way. I think here probably one soon, but this thing's got plenty of vertical move here ahead before we get to any problems. It could be very fast. I'm saying this last leg will go parabolic as we move towards the top. So parabolic means almost vertical, very steep. So you can cover a lot of ground in a short while. And those numbers seem crazy until you get into them and see how fast this thing can move. So everybody wants to pinpoint a time. I've been saying it could happen by fall. It doesn't have to, but that still might be. 27 is probably, you're going to see the bulk of the inflation late this decade, 28, 29, 30 and beyond. But I think what it ultimately leads to is inflation above 20%, maybe 25% in this country, hyperinflation around the world, and debt that has to be financed with interest rates that will follow the inflation. So if rates could get to zero, the 10-year could get to zero next year in a bust. If they start at zero, they could go to, if inflation goes 25%, the 10-year could go to something close to 20%, high teens to 20. How in the world do we service massive debt that we'll have as a result of that? That's why I say macro trumps everything else, even Trump's Trump, because his pro-growth policies are going to give us some of that boom, but that boom's going to come with huge commodity inflation. As we build factories and plants and equipment here, it's going to require a lot more commodity input than we have supply for. And that means you're going to have demand way outstripping supply and prices going through the roof. Just oil, which is a favorite of his, obviously. And I think we're in a bear cycle in oil. I think oil goes to $30 in the bust. But from there, I think oil can go to $500 by early next decade. That's what inflation means. That's, in real terms, that's what you'll see. You'll see copper go from maybe $1 or $2 in the bust to, who knows, $20, $30. I don't know where copper goes. Silver will go to 500, gold will go to 20,000. So that's what, in real terms, when I say 25% inflation by early next decade, in real terms, that's what it'll translate into commodities. And obviously commodities flow through to consumer goods and everything else. So the consumer is going to be facing some tremendous headwind. That's standard of living is going to be hit pretty hard, I think. Hopefully I'm wrong on some of that in terms of the extremes. Hopefully Trump has some policies that can, ameliorate some of that. Some of their plans to, try to reduce the deficits, and certainly growth will help the deficit. I don't buy the deficits that were being sold right now in terms of static analysis. I think Trump is right that you can grow some of your way out of those things, but once this thing explodes out of the other side of the bust, it's hard to see any policy being able to offset that.